Hi students, in this video we are going to learn about primary amenorrhea. So what does amenorrhea mean? It means amenorrhea, that is absent menstruation. There are two types of amenorrhea. Okay, it is primary amenorrhea and secondary amenorrhea. In primary amenorrhea, the girl child has never menstruated in her life. Whereas in secondary amenorrhea, in a female who has previously menstruated for 3 months or previous 3 cycles, the menstruation is not happening. Okay, so primary amenorrhea, the ACOG definition is that no menstruation by 13 years without the development of secondary sexual characters. This is very important. Or no menstruation by 15 years with the development of normal secondary sexual characters. So why is the secondary sexual characters important? Because before menarche, pubertal changes take place. Okay, so what are these pubertal changes? So you can see in this picture there is a girl child. So what happens as puberty is kicking in, the average age of puberty is 8 to 13 years. Okay, and menarche usually starts 2.5 years after the onset of puberty. So what is the sequence of puberty? Remember it this way, okay? GTA MH. So we would have heard about the game GTA Vice City, right? Remember it as GTA MH. G is growth spurt. So you can see in this picture, first there is growth spurt. There is increase in the height of the female, and estrogen is responsible for that. Followed by T. T is telarche. There is development of breast buds. Okay. Followed by adrenarche. So what is this adrenarche? Under the influence of androgens, there is development of axillary and pubic hair. So there is pubic hair development, that is adrenarche. Followed by menstruation. Okay, and finally there is increase in the growth velocity, that is increase in the height, further height. So these are the changes of puberty. This is a very important MCQ. So how the secondary sexual characters develop? There is a staging called as Tanner staging. Okay. So estrogen is mainly responsible for the development of breast, and androgen is responsible for the development of pubic and axillary hair. So under the influence of estrogen, the breast bud is going to develop. So in Tanner stage 1, only a small papillary bud is going to be present. Okay, and in stage 2 there is a breast bud and there is nipple protrusion is developing. In stage 3, palpable breast tissue is going to be present. In stage 4, there is going to be 2 elevations. Okay, you can see this separately, there is a nipple areola complex and then palpable breast tissue. So there will be 2 mounds in stage 4, whereas in stage 5, mature adult breast with nipple protrusion and with a mature areolar complex will be seen. So stage 4 and 5, we can tell it as well developed breast. Coming to the development of pubic hair, in stage 1, usually the hair is going to be absent or is going to resemble the small downy hairs like that in the abdomen. Okay. In stage 2, villous long pigmented hair will be present along the labia majora. In stage 3, dark, thick, coarse pigmented hairs will be seen on the labia majora alone. In stage 4, even in the mons pubis and plus labia majora, the hair is going to be covered. And in stage 5, the whole triangular area, that is mons pubis, labia majora and the medial surface of the thigh, there is going to be development of well developed adult type of pubic hairs. So stage 4 and 5 is well developed pubic hair. Whenever the topic of primary amenorrhea comes into play, you should have an idea of what are all the possible causes of amenorrhea. Only then you will be able to come to your diagnosis. Okay. In the previous video about the menstrual cycle, I have already told you how does the HPO axis function, right? So if you want to recall, just go and press the I button. So we all know for menstruation to take place, we need a functioning HPO axis with a normal uterovaginal anatomy. So from the hypothalamus GnRH released, this acts on the anterior pituitary. There is release of 2 hormones LH and FSH. Both of these act on the uterus and ovaries. And with the changes taking place in the uterus, due to the presence of these estrogen and progesterone, there is menstruation. Okay. So the hypothalamus, pituitary, ovaries and the normal anatomy of the uterus is required for proper menstruation to take place. So when there is any problem in each of these compartments, it can lead to amenorrhea. So there are 4 compartments. The outflow tract forms the first compartment, number 1. Ovary forms the compartment number 2. Pituitary is your compartment 3 and hypothalamus is your compartment 4. So coming to the outflow tract, there is a compartment number 1. There can be absent uterus. So uterus is absent in 2 conditions. One is Mullerian anomaly, that is Mullerian agenesis, also called as MRKH syndrome, or in androgen insensitivity syndrome. This is also called as testicular feminization syndrome. Okay. In both these, there is not going to be uterus at all. So this whole organ is absent. When there is no uterus, definitely there is no endometrium. No endometrium, there is not going to be any menstruation. So Mullerian anomalies are the second most common cause of primary amenorrhea, and the third most common cause of primary amenorrhea is your androgen insensitivity syndrome. So both these are important questions. And when there is any obstruction in this outflow tract, what will happen? The menstrual fluid will keep on getting collected inside the uterine cavity. So that is called as cryptomenorrhea. So all these 3 factors are responsible for cryptomenorrhea. There can be cervical atresia or cervical stenosis. Okay. There can be septum in the vagina, or the hymen can be imperforate, that is the hymen is completely closed. Usually if this is the vaginal opening, the hymen is going to be present like a semicircular membrane. Okay. In some females, the whole hymen may close the outflow tract. So what happens? Even if the female is menstruating, the menstrual fluid is not able to come out. So the menstrual fluid is going to get accumulated inside the uterine cavity. This is called as cryptomenorrhea. Coming to the ovary, what happens? There can be gonadal dysgenesis. Gonadal dysgenesis is the most common cause of primary amenorrhea. Okay. So there can be a 46XX pure gonadal dysgenesis. Turner syndrome, this is most common. Among the gonadal dysgenesis causes, most common cause is Turner syndrome. There can be, she may have Swayze syndrome, 46XY Swayze syndrome. Even polycystic ovarian disease may be present, which can cause primary amenorrhea. Or the child might have undergone radiotherapy or chemotherapy in a very young age for some other malignancies, because of which the ovaries have become non-functional. Coming to the pituitary causes, any pituitary tumor. The most common pituitary adenoma, okay, is prolactinoma. So prolactinoma can cause primary amenorrhea. There can be an empty cellar tuscica syndrome, in which pituitary gland is completely absent, or the pituitary gland may be hypoplastic. So it is not secreting the hormones. Coming to the hypothalamic causes, so constitutional delays, there is delayed activation of GnRH neurons in some females. So because of that, they usually get in their family, everyone will be getting menstruation at a delayed age, like 16 years or 17 years, the mother, the grandmother, the siblings. So in that case, we will just reassure the female. And there can be deficiency of GnRH hormone in that person, or they can have Kallmann syndrome. Okay. Excessive exercise in the young age, stress, malnutrition, eating disorders, sleeping disorders, obesity, adrenal thyroid disorders, and hyperprolactinemia. All of these causes can cause reduced GnRH, which in turn affects the whole HPO axis and in turn causes primary amenorrhea. There is one more classification of the primary amenorrhea based upon the levels of follicle stimulating hormone. So if there is any defect in the hypothalamus or in the anterior pituitary, what happens? There is going to be less amounts of FSH and LH, right? So this is going to cause less amount of secretion of estrogen and progesterone from the ovaries. So what happens overall from the ovaries and from the hypothalamus, the hormone levels is going to be low. So that is the first type, hypogonadotropic amenorrhea. So here what happens? Both the follicle stimulating hormone and LH is low, and in turn the serum estradiol is going to be low. Whereas in the second type, it is normogonadotropic primary amenorrhea. So when can this happen? Everything is normal, still the female is not having menstruation. So it can happen in two conditions. One, the uterus is itself absent. Second condition, the uterus is present, still it is not happening. So when is the uterus absent? In androgen insensitivity syndrome and in Mullerian, that is MRKH syndrome. When the uterus is present, there is cryptomenorrhea, right? Imperforate hymen or transverse vaginal septum or in case of cervical atresia, this can happen. Or when the female is having PCOD, it can happen. Coming to category number 3, the hypothalamus is normal, the anterior pituitary is normal, but the ovaries are not functioning. So what happens when the ovary is not functioning? The levels of estrogen and progesterone are going to be low. So this is going to send a feedback to the hypothalamus and pituitary. There is going to be increased production of GnRH, and from the anterior pituitary there will be increased production of FSH. But still the ovaries are defective, so there is going to be less amount of estrogen. So this is called as hypergonadotropic primary amenorrhea. So whenever there is a gonadal dysgenesis, there is going to be hypergonadotropic primary amenorrhea. That is, FSH level is high, but your estradiol level is low here. So the most common cause is Turner syndrome. The main important key here is history taking. So what are the histories we will ask? So only if you remember all the causes of primary amenorrhea, we can take appropriate history for that. For constitutional delay, ask the similar history in the family, if the mother, grandmother or the siblings are having similar history. In Kallmann syndrome, ask for history of anosmia. Okay. For tumors, ask for history of tubular tumors, ask for history of headache. Okay, blurring of vision. For PCOS, ask for history of hirsutism, any deepening of voice or weight gain. Ask for history of radiotherapy or chemotherapy. For congenital adrenal hyperplasia, ask for any signs of virilization, okay, deepening of voice, any hirsutism again. Hypothyroidism, ask for history of cold intolerance, constipation. For hyperproteinemia, ask for history of galactorrhea. For Mullerian agenesis and AAS, you can ask if there is any similar history in the family. Okay. And for cervical stenosis, transverse vaginal septum and imperforate hymen, ask for history of cyclical abdominal pain. Next, coming to MRKH syndrome. So what is MRKH syndrome? It is also called as Mayer, Rokitansky, Kussner, Hauser syndrome. So in MRKH syndrome, what happens is the uterus is going to see, you can see the uterus is absent here, but the ovaries are well developed. So the genotype of this female is going to be 46XX. And because the ovaries are going to be present, there is going to be presence of estrogen. So under the influence of estrogen, the breast development is going to be normal. So what is androgen insensitivity syndrome? Here the androgen receptor is defective. Okay. So any androgen will not be able to act on the body. The child is going to have a genotype of 46XY, but the phenotype is going to be a female phenotype. So why does this happen? Whenever the genotype is 46XY, the gonad going to be formed as testis, and testis releases testosterone and anti-Mullerian hormone. This anti-Mullerian hormone is going to inhibit the development of your uterus, fallopian tube and cervix and the upper half of vagina. So all these structures are going to be absent, whereas this testosterone cannot act on the androgen receptors. So what happens? There is no development of pubic or axillary hair. Both are absent in the female. But when it goes to the adipose tissue, it gets converted into estrogen. This estrogen is responsible for breast development. So this is how we differentiate between MRKH and androgen insensitivity syndrome. The genotype here is XX, genotype is X and Y. The normal female amount of testosterone is going to be present. Here the male amount of testosterone is going to be present. The female pubic and axillary hair is present normally, but here it is absent. The female height is going to be normal. Here the height is increased. And the ovaries are the gonads here. Here the testicles are present. They are usually present either in the abdomen or in the inguinal canal or they can be present on the labia majora. Okay, so here the ovaries are going to be normal ovaries. There is no any increased risk of gonadal malignancy. But here, after they attain puberty, gonadectomy is required. Usually after 18 years, they do gonadectomy. So why wait till 18 years? This is because in androgen deficiency syndrome, the testis is a normal testis and it is releasing hormones, which is responsible for at least adequate breast development in the female and development of proper height. Okay, so if you are going to do a gonadectomy very earlier, then even the breast development and height development is not going to be present. So that is why we wait till they attain puberty, and around 16 to 18 years of age we prefer gonadectomy, because there is at least 5% risk of development of malignancy from this testis. Next, coming to Turner syndrome, I already told you the most common cause of gonadal dysgenesis or primary amenorrhea is your Turner syndrome. It is also the most common cause of hypergonadotropic hypogonadism. The karyotype is 45XO or 45X0 or 46XX. It can be mosaic Turners also. And they'll have all the stigmata of Turners. First, there will be short height. You can see the web-shaped neck, shield chest, widely spaced nipples, cubitus valgus may be present. They may have any heart problems, any renal defects. Okay, there is a white sandal gap present, and they'll have only streak ovaries. Okay, so to confirm the diagnosis, we have to do karyotyping, and the streak ovaries are present here. What happens actually in utero, when this kid is a fetus, the ovary is going to develop normally only. But what happens after birth, there is very rapid atresia of all the ovarian follicles. So because of very less amount of estrogen, there is low height. The height is less, and also the breast development is less. And we all know there is one X chromosome missing. So because of that, all the other features of Turner syndrome occurs. So what is the treatment for Turner syndrome? Mainly, we give estrogen progesterone therapy up to the age of 50 years. What happens in cryptomenorrhea, I told you, there is the obstruction to the outflow tract. Because of that, the menstrual fluid is not able to come out. So the menstrual fluid will get collected in the vagina, in the cervix, or inside the uterus, or in the fallopian tube. So when it is getting collected in the vagina, it is called as hematocolpos. Okay, or in the uterus, it is called as hematometra. So how to differentiate between TVS and imperforate hymen? Local examination, it is going to have a pinkish septum which is concave. Okay, so this is the vagina, it is going to be like this, pinkish and concave. Whereas the imperforate hymen, you can see in this picture, it is bluish in color and it is bulging outside. So the fluid is, menstrual fluid is guided here, so the membrane is bulging outside. So the treatment for the transverse vaginal septum is excision of the septum and vaginal pull through. Whereas for imperforate hymen, treatment is cruciate incision. You can see a cruciate incision is made, and the hymenal membrane is stitched to the edges. So all the collected fluid will, menstrual fluid. So when any female child is coming to us with history of amenorrhea, we have to do a urine pregnancy test and rule out pregnancy. This is very important, because there have been cases where a girl coming with primary amenorrhea has had pregnancy. So if the UPT is negative, then we can proceed with the remaining part of the algorithm. Take the appropriate history. If she is going to give you history of cyclical lower abdominal pain, then probably it is a case of cryptomenorrhea. On local examination, if she is having a bluish bulging membrane, it is imperforate hymen. If she is having a pinkish transverse septum which is concave in the vagina, it is transverse vaginal septum. You have to confirm this diagnosis by using MRI, or it can even be a case of cervical atresia, which you can confirm again by using MRI. Okay. In all these three conditions, the karyotype of the female is going to be 46XX. Okay, and the secondary sexual characters are going to be well developed. There is no problem in the ovaries. If the history of cyclical lower abdominal pain is absent, then take a look at the secondary sexual character of the female. If the secondary sexual character is absent, then notice her height. So if she is of short height, then most probably it is because there is insufficient or low level of estrogen in her. That is why her height is short. So it can be because of two causes. Either the ovaries are not responding, or from the hypothalamus and pituitary only sufficient amount of gonadotropins are not produced. So it is better to get follicle stimulating hormone and serum estradiol done. If FSH is elevated and estradiol level is low, it is a case of hypergonadotropic amenorrhea. That means the problem is in the ovaries. So we all know a female with short height and absent secondary sexual characters, there is more chance of her having Turner syndrome. So which can be confirmed by karyotyping. Okay, in karyotyping, if it turns out to be 46XY, then most probably she is a case of Swyer syndrome. Okay. On the other hand, a follicle stimulating hormone and estradiol, if both are low, this means hypogonadotropic hypogonadism. From the hypothalamus or pituitary there is some problem, because of which the estradiol is also reduced. So it is better to get a CT or MRI of the brain to rule out hypothalamic or pituitary causes. Okay. So if the secondary sexual character is present, then what should we do? Find out if the patient is having uterus or not. We can do a per rectal examination. Better way it is to get a ultrasound examination done. So if the uterus is going to be absent, we know there are only two causes. It can be either a case of androgen insensitivity syndrome or MRKH syndrome. So how can we confirm the diagnosis? In AIS, the karyotyping when it is done, it is going to be 46XY, whereas in MRKH the karyotyping is going to be 46XX. So if uterus is present, secondary sexual characters are present, okay, and there is no history of sacral lower abdominal pain, then you have to rule out the other causes like rule out PCOS, congenital adrenal hyperplasia, hypothyroidism and hyperprolactinemia. So now let us discuss the MCQs. A 15-year-old female comes to OPD with complaints of primary amenorrhea and cyclical lower abdominal pain for the past 3 years. So what is your probable diagnosis? So it can options are MRKH syndrome, Turner syndrome, imperforate hymen and chocolate cyst. So now we will rule out one by one. Can it be a case of MRKH syndrome? No, because in MRKH the uterus itself is going to be absent, and we have this complaints of cyclical lower abdominal pain whenever there is any obstruction to the outflow tract present. So in MRKH the uterus is absent and the patient is going to have a short blind vagina. So it's probably not MRKH syndrome. Coming to Turner syndrome, her karyotype is going to be 45XO and she is going to have streak ovaries which secrete obviously less amount of estrogen, because of which she has not attained menarche. So it is not a case of Turner syndrome. Imperforate hymen, this is the option, this is the answer. It is because in imperforate hymen there is an obstruction. So this is the uterus, cervix and vagina. There is an obstruction at the level of hymen, because of which the menstrual fluid is getting collected in the uterus and in the vagina. Okay, so she is coming with complaints of cyclical lower abdominal pain. Always have a look at the last option also. Sometimes it can be a better option, but here it is chocolate cyst, which is not the right answer. So the answer here is imperforate hymen. Coming to the next question, a 14-year-old girl child comes to OPD with complaints of primary amenorrhea with short stature and absent secondary sexual characters. What is the next line of investigation? So here they have asked the next investigation which you will do. The girl is having primary amenorrhea, short stature and absent secondary sexual characters. So the options are ultrasound, serum FSH, serum estradiol and MRI brain. She is having short stature and absent secondary sexual characters, which means there is hypoestrogenism. So probably, most probably the ovaries may be defective. Okay, sometimes it may be the hypothalamus and pituitary also. So it's always better to get the serum FSH done to understand whether it is hypergonadotropic hypogonadism or hypogonadotropic hypogonadism. So serum FSH is the next line of investigation which we will prefer. Ultrasound we won't do here. Estradiol is not the first line here, and MRI brain also we won't do. So serum FSH is the right option here. 16-year-old girl presents with primary amenorrhea with TANS stage 4 breast development, but pubic and axillary hair are absent. USG revealed absent uterus. So what is the investigation to confirm your diagnosis? So it's a case of primary amenorrhea. Breast is well developed, okay, but axillary and pubic hair is absent. So it's most probably a case of androgen insensitivity syndrome. So which is the confirmatory investigation here? Options are MRI, FSH, LH and karyotyping. So obviously we will do the karyotyping because the karyotype is going to be 46XY in this person. Kallmann syndrome is associated with all of the following except anosmia, primary amenorrhea, color blindness and mental retardation. So we already know in Kallmann syndrome definitely anosmia is going to be present. So this is not the answer. Primary amenorrhea is obviously present. Coming to the next two options, we don't have much idea. But the thing is, in Kallmann syndrome, the patient can never be mentally retarded. The person is having normal IQ. So mental retardation is the answer. Okay. So it's better to remember this next slide. Kallmann syndrome is associated with optic atrophy, color blindness, nerve deafness, cleft palate, renal anomalies, cryptorchidism and neurological abnormalities. Kallmann syndrome can present either in male or in female. In male, there is delayed puberty, micropenis and anosmia. Whereas in female, there is primary amenorrhea, absent secondary sexual characters and anosmia. The treatment is going to be cyclical estrogen progesterone therapy or gonadotropins. Other than Kallmann syndrome, Prader-Willi syndrome, Lawrence-Moon-Beadle syndrome, septo-optic dysplasia and Froelich syndrome. So all these syndromes are hypothalamic syndromes which can present with primary amenorrhea. So the sequence of pubertal changes are GTP-MH, growth spurt, thelat, pubarch or adrenarche, and increase in the growth velocity. Most common cause of primary amenorrhea, the first most common is Turner syndrome, second most common is Remke syndrome, and the third most common is androgen insensitivity syndrome. So I guess you would have understood primary amenorrhea.